If you could rid the world of one thing, what would it be? This is a very popular meme on Facebook right now. Let's evaluate without emotion and see what the real root of evil is. And the reason why this is so important is that, if we focus, we could really fix things. It's essential to get down to the root problem. And that's what we're failing to do as a species right now. We're divided and conquered, so our energy is actually being used against one another. So to save the world is fast and easy. It's kind of like the horse that's tied to a chair, and the horse has been programmed for so long that the chair is somehow restraining him, but it isn't. And that's kind of how humanity is right now. We've lived as slaves for so long, we don't know exactly what we're capable of. As it goes, sometimes the chains that prevent us from being free are more mental than physical. So we got to get past our mental slavery, as Bob Marley says. So all achievement comes through focus. And think of a magnifying glass when it burns a hole through some paper. And we need to do this to avoid World War III, a dollar collapse, a zombie apocalypse. And there's no need to go live off-grid or live in a bunker. And those are the self-limiting futures options that we're being given. Think of it, a zombie apocalypse. 4, peace, justice, and unity, one love. And we need to do this because we owe it to our children. We're passing on an enormous debt to them. And that is completely irresponsible. Number 6, the environment and animals deserve better. They are victims in all of this. When humanity is destroying itself, the animals are the ones that suffer the consequences. 7, we need to self-actualize and evolve. And humanity needs to individually, we need to evolve, and as a species, we need to evolve. And that won't happen until we overcome this challenge of fixing what's wrong with our system. So in order to do this, we need to have ego out and wisdom in. Or as Jesus says, in order to enter the kingdom of heaven, we must make our minds again like a child. So here's an exercise. Why should we focus on the root of the problem? And I have an example for this. It's kind of silly, but it's called the wet clothes example. And as a contractor, it's kind of silly, but anyway, I've got a problem. My clothes are wet and they're on the floor. The solution, take them off the floor. Well, still have a problem. My clothes, they're wet and now they're on the dresser. Solution, move the clothes from the dresser onto a hanger. Problem, my clothes are wet and they're on the hanger now. Solution, put the clothes in the dryer. Problem, the dryer won't work because the electric shorted. Solution, call an electrician. Problem, the electrician says the roof is leaking. The solution, hire a roofer to fix the leak. Problem, the roof is still leaking. The solution, hire a roofer to remove the shingles and replace the rotten plywood. So we replaced the shingles and now we got to replace the plywood. We're going backward. Problem, the roof is still leaking. Well, solution, hire the roofer to remove the shingles and the plywood in order to replace the rotten roof trusses. Problem, the roof is still leaking. Solution, hire a mason to replace the shingles, the trusses, and everything and fix the block walls. But it's still leaking. Solution, take the entire house down and rebuild the foundation. Now, this sounds like an absurd example, but this comedy of errors does happen in real life. And as a contractor for 25 years, I've seen it happen lots of times where we go out and you have a frustrated customer that has the same problem fixed over and over, and we just kind of kick the can down the road as a society right now, and we're not focusing on the root problems in society. And because of that, we are perpetually fighting the same symptoms. So the essential lesson number 1 is get to the root of the problem, saves time, energy, and aggravation. Essential lesson number 2, think of how many symptoms there are when the foundation of a house is unsound. When you have a bad foundation of a house, you have, your tile will crack, your concrete will crack, the roof will shift off level, your electric will short out because you'll get bad connections. You'll have potentially a risk of fire from electric. Your insulation won't work properly because there might be air escaping the house. The roof will leak. So there's many, many, many symptoms, and it's our natural thing to want to fix the thing that's touching us or contacting us first. So when we don't get to the root of the problem, we're actually playing whack-a-mole. And whack-a-mole is like NDAA, police state, drones, Monsanto, 9/11, Islam. Think of all these different things we're chasing around, but that's not wise. You don't win anything. You're just a fool when you're operating like that. So what is wise? For every 1,000 hacking at the branches of evil, there is one who strikes the root. Oligarch stays in power by deliberately provoking the masses' emotions to focus on symptoms. So when we focus on our emotions, we're always focusing on the superficial problems. We're getting wet, so we open up an umbrella. The problem is the foundation to our entire house is bad. And that's exactly what's going on right now as for the human species. We have thousands of symptoms caused by foundational problems. Homelessness, hunger, famine, drought, environmental collapse. They're all symptoms. And it's time for us to get to the root of the problem. Some people say the love of money is the root of all evil. Now, there's some sins or problems that we can eliminate, and there's some that we cannot. We can't eliminate the 7 deadly sins because they exist also in the animal kingdom. They're made by nature, not by man. So the things that man made, we can fix. So you have greed, lust, envy, sloth, pride, anger, gluttony. So if you think of a dog that would eat too much if the food was out all the time, or how dogs hump all the time, so they have lust, right? They'll hump anything. They'll hump your leg. You have sloth. You have a lazy dog that just they don't want to play. They're just. Then you have mean or envious dogs. So those things we can't fix. In the meme, if what is one thing that we could fix, on Facebook, I see lots of answers kind of from the left or Occupy. And those are corporations, greed, teabaggers, corporate personhood, corporate media, Monsanto, homelessness, joblessness, ignorance, apathy, hate, racism, religion, war, conservatives, fascism, capitalism, big oil, big pharma, big agri, corporate welfare, overpopulation, hunger, homophobia, cancer, disease, bank bailouts, Zionism, politicians. I'm not saying these things are evil. I'm just listing the things that other people say are evil. Now, going to the right, or the Tea Party, that's big government, progressives, communism, socialism, taxes, welfare, illegal immigration, bank bailouts, cancer, disease, lawyers, liberal TV, liberal education, Islam, politicians. Then there's libertarians. Their answers are different from the other two. They say the Federal Reserve, war, police state, NDAA, drones, military police, Patriot Act, government force, corporate media, inflation, paper money, Monsanto, corporate media, Zionism, secret societies, Illuminati. Then anarchists have different answers. They say the state is the root of all evil, or government force, paper money, fiat money, the Federal Reserve, war, police state, statists, religion, superstition, or Zionism. Now, Alternatively, the great prophets from thousands of years ago, they say that Moses, Jesus, Muhammad, Aristotle, Plato, and Cicero, they say that usury, which means money monopoly, mammon, or the den of thieves, is the root of all evil. So who's right? How do we kind of evaluate this? So let's go to the tree of evil and see who's hacking at the root and who's hacking at the branches. So at the top of the tree, that's recent problems. The branches, those are symptoms, just kind of like the roof at the top. And then you have foundational problems at the root. Those are old problems all the way down at the bottom of the tree. So starting at the top of the tree, we have age in years starting at 10 years old. So problems that are 10 years old and 50 years old, 100 years old, 300 years old, all the way down to 6,000 years old. So starting at 10 years old, you have 9/11, the Patriot Act, NDAA, drones, the Trans-Pacific Partnership. So those are all things that are, at the top of the branches. Those are the most kind of recent things going on. So it's drones. Now going back 50 years, militarized police, you have the UN, Common Core, fluoride, Agenda 21, legal abortion, chemtrails. So those are the things that are 50 years old and younger. Moving on from there, 100 years old, there's a bunch of things that are 100 years old. You think about Monsanto, the Federal Reserve, Big Pharma, Big Oil, the progressive movement, the war on drugs. Income taxes were started roughly 100 years ago. And, many people would say that is the root of all evil, is just income tax, that you can have this entity just take from you or take your property. What it really comes down to is even without income taxes, the bankers you can eliminate income taxes right now, and the bankers can actually issue new money and steal from you through a usurped monetary system. So again, the Fed's 100 years old. That's the most common thing that I would see in memes, that people would list the Federal Reserve. And definitely there's an angry minority that blames Israel as the root of all evil, or Zionism. Definitely think of the war on drugs, like how much police state has grown from it. So now we're at 300 years old. That's going back to the foundation of the United States, the Constitution, and actually Democrats started right away. The Rothschild, central banks, secret societies. Now at 500 years old, you have corporations, and the East India Company was a company established to colonize the New World on behalf of the Crown in Europe. They used these corporations to, basically colonize the entire planet. So they've definitely are responsible for financing some genocide. So going back now 2,000 years, you have Christianity, Islam, the Vatican. Islam is 500 years after Jesus, roughly, and the Vatican's around 300 years after Jesus. Some people blame the Jesuits as being the root of all evil, but we're going to go back in time even further. So now we're at 3,500 years, and there's some people that blame Judaism, that it's all the Jews' fault. That's baloney, because you have Moses and Jesus and Joshua who are against this foundation. Their law is being ignored. So at 5,000 years, you have the state or government force or politicians. This is where anarchists would say is the root of all evil. Now we're at 6,000 years old, and this is the root of the evil, where you have usury, which is mammon from the Bible. It's the money monopoly. This is where a tiny cabal is able to control the money system. By monopolizing the money system, they monopolize the reward system, and whoever controls the reward system is able to train the obedience of the masses. Basically, whoever's not obedient, they can hire a private army in order to use the stick if they need to. So now you have the golden calf, basically from the Bible, explaining that when Moses went up to Mount Sinai, he came down and people were worshiping the golden calf. And by worshiping a false idol like that, they consent to their own enslavement, where they can issue their own money. They choose not to, and they worship the golden calf, so they become beholden to the monopoly power that does control the mining of gold. So the love of money is the love of money over our brothers and sisters. So how can we prove that the money monopoly is a worse evil than the state force? So this is an argument or a debate that you'd have between anarchists and myself, because I believe that usury is the root of all evil, where a state or anarchists believe that that government is the root of all evil. So the way we can kind of boil that down, think of the golden rule. He who has the gold makes the rules. It's not who's in charge of the government. So let's say there was no government. If I have the gold, then I make the rules. As simple as that. So all I need is in a community, if I'm the one that owns all the land and the gold mines, then I make the rules. No government needed. Also, allow me to control the money, and I care not who makes the laws, by Rothschild. Obedience can be trained in a dog with rewards alone. Quote by Wayne Walton. So think about it. You can teach a dog to do all kinds of stuff without the stick of force, just with rewards alone. That should be very self-evident. Or think of this truth. Money rules. Money monopoly exists without puppet government. So you don't need to have a government in order to have a money monopoly. Another example, money monopoly alone permits 0.01% to usurp the will of 0.99%. So that's where usury and usurpation come to play by controlling the money system. Also, debt slavery to the 1% is not eliminated if government is dissolved. So even though if government is gone, we would still be paying our debts to the same bankers for our houses, for our cars, for our credit cards. Our energy would still be fueling their system. Additionally, contract fraud based upon interest, even at 1%, is not eliminated if government is dissolved. So even though there is no government, mathematically it's impossible for all borrowers to pay when interest is implied to a monetary system. And what will happen is mathematically the bankers will acquire all of the assets over time. How would you answer now? If you could rid the world of one thing, what would it be? Would your answer change now? Many people, it won't change because their ego prevails. You know, when you're getting rained on, you're wet and cold. You don't want to think about the foundation of the house. That's too big of a problem. The easiest solution for you when you're getting wet inside your house is just to put an umbrella up. Put buckets on the floor. And that's what humanity's doing right now, is we're not fixing the foundation. By eliminating usury money monopoly, we replace the tree of evil with the tree of life. And that's what humanity needs to do, is just like in the example with the house, is we need to replace the foundation and then build from the bottom up. That will give us a new house without leaks, that is the foundational solution for humanity to escape this paradigm where we are perpetually kicking the can down the road. So now here's a couple of memes. See, where the bankers go from here with the money solution is they have to give us the illusion of competing currencies. So just like there's hundreds or even thousands of channels on TV supposedly competing, none of these channels tell us the truth. So you have ABC and HBO and NBC and Fox. Now, they might have different delivery system. Like, you might get the cable, and other people might get their television through Dish TV. So some might say, well, they're different. They don't have a monopoly. Well, yeah, they do. You're getting the exact same content. It's filtered. There's only certain things they tell you about. So even though the form is different, nonetheless, you're not getting the truth because all of these different systems are monopolized. Now we're on the carrot or stick meme, right? So if you think of the carrot, that's the money monopoly. That's the reward system. And then the stick is government force. That's punishment. And all living things seek pleasure and avoid pain. So even from a child, nobody has to teach a child to seek pleasure or avoid pain. And the same with animals. The money monopoly does not need government, as obedience can be achieved with rewards alone. So the example here in the picture is a dog begging. Think of all the things you can teach a dog to do without any punishment. You can teach them to beg and roll over and walk in their hind legs, to retrieve, to swim, to dive off a dock. You can do the same thing with, I've seen squirrels where they do all kinds of crazy stuff that people teach them with rewards alone. For thousands of years, gold money permitted the 1% to control humanity's obedience with rewards alone. Later, silver was used during Jesus' time with silver shekels. He turned tables with silver shekels, monopolized by the elite. And Jesus was also betrayed with 30 pieces of silver. Similarly, those money monopoly forms of Federal Reserve notes, and today it's Bitcoin. All of these different forms of monopoly currency are controlled by the 1%. They have different forms. Some are digital, some are paper, some are physical and digital, some are metals. Ultimately, it doesn't matter about the form. What matters is, do the elite or the have-nots issue the currency? The next meme here is called the fraud of competing currencies and competing parties, for instance. Does anybody think that Republicans and Democrats are really competing, or competing media? Fox News versus MSNBC versus BBC, World, CBS News and ABC, are they competing? How about competing energy? Natural gas and clean coal and BP petroleum versus nuclear. Are they competing? They have different forms, but ultimately they're all monopolized. Similarly, you have Federal Reserve notes, gold, silver, Bitcoin, and greenbacks. Now, greenbacks have monopoly control, and the elite, and even prior to greenbacks, you had the tally stick system. And under the tally stick system, which was centralized by the elite in England, they actually created the British Empire. Now, the British Empire, the sun never set on it. Well, think of the massive genocide that needed to occur in order for a small country like England with very few natural resources. It was able to conquer planet Earth by using this money power in the form of tally sticks, and they used it for empire and war and colonization. Similarly, Lincoln's greenbacks were used for war and a military draft, eliminating natural rights and arresting dissenters during the Civil War. Well, I don't see that greenbacks are something that serve the have-nots either, because I don't want to go to war. I don't want to be drafted. I don't want my energy to be used to colonize planet Earth. You know, absolute power corrupts absolutely. And when you have a centralized system, even though it's, public banking, it still can be used by the monopoly bankers to create problems throughout the planet. So the problem is that the elite maintain control with the illusion of choice. We don't have choice, we have owners. The next meme is, how do you know if you're energizing a positive or a negative currency? All forms of money are energized by human beings. If human beings didn't exist, the money would have no value. So since the money is actually backed by our energy, we human beings, the masses, since the money is backed by our energy or our belief, therefore it should be us that choose which currency that we want to energize, and we want to make sure that that currency isn't being used against our own interests in order to enslave us. So that it's very simple to establish which is positive and which is a negative currency. The positive currency is the one that you issue yourself, that the have-nots issue. And examples of that type of currency are a time bank or LETS, local exchange trading system. A gift certificate is issued by a restaurant owner, for instance. That's self-issued currency. Our money, mutual credit, or barter script. So negative currency examples have monopoly of issue where only the elite can issue the currency. That's in the form of Federal Reserve notes, gold, silver, Bitcoin, or the aforementioned Lincoln greenbacks, tally sticks. And the problem is when the elite monopolize the money, that means our commercial energy energizes their monetary system, then they use it for war or police state or Monsanto or draft. That's the definition of usurpation, where the will of the masses is usurped by a tiny minority through the monetary system. And that's why the prophets and the great philosophers all warned against usury usurpation. So finally, the whole point of this process of elimination and in getting to the root of the problem is so that we can checkmate the money kings, is for humanity to reclaim its power from the elite. That has been the fundamental question that has plagued humanity through the ages. My degree is in history, and what we're told from history is, has been massive lies. My degree is worthless. But what's powerful is when you can study these topics and delve back into it, understanding the money question, then everything is much more understandable, and you can get to the root of the conflicts and how the bankers finance both sides of war. So once we understand that, we understand the root cause problem, and we know what the solution is, the money power has nowhere to go. So how do the pawns beat money kings? Through self-issued anti-monopoly money. And that's approved by the prophets. Typically, the issue of usury is brought forward in a biblical way where it's a question of spirituality or morality, and I'm trying to present it in a rational case. I'm trying to make a rational case. We're not talking about eliminating usury, money monopoly, for the sake of, that God said we have to. I'm making the case that this is the reason why humanity is enslaved. It's a rational decision. The math says that usury is a foundational problem. Whether you're a believer or not, usury, money monopoly, is entirely destructive to our interests. Start.ourmoney.net for more details and free training.